October 26, 2019. Somewhere in the pitch-black skies over northwestern Syria. 8 helicopters cut through the darkness like phantoms. Inside, America's most elite warriors sit in complete silence. Delta Force operators. The best of the best. Men who've trained their entire lives for moments exactly like this one. But there's something unusual about this mission. Something that sets it apart from every other operation these soldiers have ever undertaken. Sitting among them, wearing a tactical vest equipped with cameras, night vision, and body armor worth more than most cars, is a dog. Not just any dog. A 4-legged warrior with more combat experience than most human soldiers. A living weapon with a bite force of 700 pounds per square inch. A hunter trained to chase evil into the darkest corners of the earth. His name is classified. His breed is Belgian Malinois. His target tonight is the most dangerous man on the planet. Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. The self-proclaimed caliph of the Islamic State. A monster responsible for the deaths of thousands of innocent people. Beheadings. Burnings. Slavery. Genocide. For 5 years, the world's intelligence agencies have hunted this ghost. Billions of dollars spent. Countless operations failed. He always seemed to vanish like smoke. But tonight, the hunter becomes the hunted. And the one who will chase him into his final hiding place? The one who will look evil in the eyes in a dark underground tunnel? It won't be a man. It will be a dog named Conan. Before Conan became a legend, he was just another puppy in a military breeding program. Born with an instinct that couldn't be taught. A drive that couldn't be manufactured. Belgian Malinois are often called fur missiles by the special operations community. They're lighter and faster than German shepherds. More aggressive. More relentless. They don't know the meaning of the word quit. From his earliest days, Conan showed something different. Something that made his trainers take notice. While other dogs hesitated, Conan charged forward. While other dogs tired, Conan pushed harder. While other dogs feared loud noises and chaos, Conan seemed to come alive in it. He was built for war. Every muscle. Every instinct. Every fiber of his being was designed for one purpose: to find the enemy and never, ever let go. But being built for something and actually doing it are two very different things. Conan had trained for years. He had served in countless operations. But nothing could prepare him for what was coming. In the weeks leading up to the raid, intelligence officers noticed something disturbing about al-Baghdadi's compound. The terrorist leader had prepared for everything. Reinforced walls. Armed guards positioned at every corner. Escape tunnels dug deep beneath the building, designed to help him vanish at the first sign of trouble. But there was one element he hadn't considered. One variable that would prove to be his ultimate undoing. Al-Baghdadi feared many things. American drones. Rival factions. Traitors in his inner circle. But he never imagined that his end would come with 4 legs and fur. He never imagined that no tunnel would be deep enough. No darkness dark enough. No hiding spot secure enough. Because Conan didn't hunt with eyes or technology. Conan hunted with something far more powerful. Instinct. And on that October night, his instinct was locked onto the most wanted man in the world. The helicopters touched down at approximately 0:30. The compound was immediately surrounded. There would be no escape. Not tonight. Delta Force operators breached the walls with explosive precision. Gunfire erupted in the darkness. Al-Baghdadi's guards fell within seconds. The world's most elite soldiers cleared room after room with mechanical efficiency. But the primary target was gone. Al-Baghdadi had fled into the tunnels beneath the compound, just as intelligence had feared. He had grabbed 2 of his own children, using them as human shields. And he had strapped a suicide vest to his chest. If any soldier followed him into that tunnel, he would detonate the explosives. He would take everyone with him. It was a standoff with no solution. The terrorist had trapped himself, yes. But he had also created a death trap for anyone who pursued him. That's when the handler made the call. Send in Conan. The Belgian Malinois didn't hesitate. While every human operator held their position, Conan sprinted into the darkness. No fear. No hesitation. Just pure, focused aggression. Into the tunnel. Into the black. Chasing a monster who thought he was beyond justice. The soldiers above ground could only listen. The sounds of barking echoed through the compound. Then running. Then screaming. If you're fascinated by stories of military heroes, both human and animal, make sure to subscribe to this channel. We bring you the most incredible true stories every single week. For weeks after the raid, Conan's identity was shrouded in secrecy. The military released a single photograph, a beautiful Belgian Malinois with alert eyes and a muscular frame. But his name was redacted. Classified. Protected for operational security. Speculation ran wild across the internet. What kind of dog was he? Where did he come from? What exactly happened in that tunnel? Then, on November 25, 2019, the world got its answer. President Donald Trump stood in the Rose Garden of the White House. Beside him, calm and dignified, sat Conan. Conan is a tough cookie, the president told reporters. And we've spent some good time with him. And so brilliant. So smart. The dog's name was finally revealed to the public. And with that revelation came the full story of what he had accomplished. Conan had chased al-Baghdadi to the dead end of the tunnel. The terrorist, cornered and terrified, detonated his suicide vest. The explosion collapsed the tunnel, killing al-Baghdadi and, tragically, the two children he had used as shields. Conan was caught in the blast. Electrical cables fell around him. He was injured, shocked, wounded. But he was alive. When the dust settled, when the smoke cleared, Conan emerged from the rubble like something out of legend. Injured but standing. Wounded but unbroken. He had done what billions of dollars and thousands of soldiers couldn't do. He had cornered the most wanted terrorist on earth. And now, he stood in the White House, receiving a medal and a moment of recognition that most humans never achieve. A dog. A warrior. An American hero. His name was Conan. But heroism comes at a cost. What the cameras didn't show at the White House ceremony was the reality of what Conan had experienced. The psychological toll. The physical wounds. The invisible scars that no medal could heal. Military working dogs, like their human counterparts, suffer from post-traumatic stress. They experience nightmares. They flinch at loud sounds. They carry the weight of combat long after the battle's end. Conan had been exposed to explosions, gunfire, and violence throughout his career. The raid on al-Baghdadi's compound was simply the most dramatic moment in a life filled with trauma. And this raises uncomfortable questions that the military has grappled with for decades. Is it ethical to send dogs into combat? These animals don't choose to serve. They don't understand geopolitics or terrorism or the complex reasons why humans wage war. They simply follow their training. They trust their handlers completely. And they run toward danger because that's what they've been taught to do. Some argue that using dogs in warfare is exploitative. That we're putting innocent animals in harm's way for human conflicts they can't comprehend. But others point to the lives saved. In Conan's case, his willingness to enter that tunnel meant that no human soldier had to. If a Delta Force operator had pursued al-Baghdadi into the darkness, the suicide blast would have certainly killed him. Possibly multiple operators. Conan's action saved human lives. Potentially many of them. The military argues that these dogs are treated with extraordinary care. They receive the best veterinary treatment, the best training. When they retire, they're adopted by their handlers or by loving families who understand their special needs. Conan, despite his injuries, recovered fully. He returned to active duty with the Delta Force unit that he had served with for years. His bond with his handler, whose identity remains classified, was unbroken. But the moral complexity doesn't disappear with recovery. Every time a military working dog is sent into combat, a calculation is being made. The value of human life weighed against the value of animal life. The needs of the mission weighed against the well-being of a creature that can't consent. There are no easy answers. What we do know is that Conan served with distinction. He performed his duty at the highest level imaginable. And he represented something that transcends the debate about ethics. He represented loyalty. Dogs have served alongside human warriors for thousands of years. From ancient Rome to medieval Europe to the modern battlefield. They don't fight for ideology or country or politics. They fight for their pack. And on that October night in Syria, Conan's pack included the Delta Force operators who had trained with him, lived with him, and trusted him with their lives. He wasn't thinking about ethics when he ran into that tunnel. He was thinking about them. Stories like Conan's deserve to be told. If you agree, hit that subscribe button and join our community. Together, we're preserving the memories of heroes who might otherwise be forgotten. The raid that killed al-Baghdadi didn't happen in a vacuum. It was the culmination of years of intelligence work, diplomatic maneuvering, and geopolitical chess. And it almost didn't happen at all. In the weeks before the operation, President Trump made a controversial decision to withdraw American troops from northern Syria. This move was criticized by military leaders, diplomats, and politicians on both sides of the aisle. The concern was simple: pulling out American forces would destabilize the region and potentially allow ISIS to regroup. Kurdish allies who had fought alongside U.S. troops for years felt abandoned. Turkey, a NATO ally with complicated motivations, launched a military operation into the very areas American forces were leaving. It was chaos. And in the middle of that chaos, intelligence agencies were tracking al-Baghdadi's movements. The terrorist leader had become increasingly isolated in his final years. The physical caliphate, the territory that ISIS had once controlled across Iraq and Syria, had crumbled. Tens of thousands of fighters were dead or captured. The dream of a new Islamic empire had turned to dust. But al-Baghdadi himself remained free. Moving from safe house to safe house. Recording occasional audio messages to remind his followers that he was still alive, still leading, still dangerous. Finding him required an extraordinary network of informants, satellite surveillance, and intelligence sharing between multiple nations. The CIA worked with Iraqi intelligence. Kurdish forces provided crucial ground-level information. Even Russia, despite tense relations with the United States, was notified before the raid to prevent any accidental conflicts in Syrian airspace. The operation was a diplomatic tightrope walk. And Conan was at the center of it. Military working dogs like Conan aren't just weapons, they're investments. Training a dog for special operations takes years and costs hundreds of thousands of dollars. These animals are irreplaceable assets, and losing one in combat is treated with the same gravity as losing a human soldier. When the decision was made to send Conan into the tunnel, it wasn't taken lightly. The commanders knew the risks. They knew that the suicide vest could kill the dog just as easily as it could kill a man. But the mission required it. Al-Baghdadi couldn't be allowed to escape again. Every minute he remained free was another minute he could plot attacks, inspire violence, and evade justice. The pressure from Washington was immense. President Trump had been briefed on the operation and was watching in real time from the Situation Room. Military leaders, intelligence officials, and national security advisors monitored every moment. If the mission failed, if al-Baghdadi escaped or if American forces suffered casualties, the political fallout would be severe. The decision to withdraw from Syria was already controversial. A botched raid would add fuel to an already raging fire. And there was another layer of pressure: the media. News organizations had caught wind that something was happening in Syria. Helicopters had been spotted. Unusual military movements detected. The operation needed to succeed quickly, before leaks compromised the mission entirely. In that environment of maximum pressure, Conan performed flawlessly. He didn't know about the politics. He didn't understand the diplomatic complexities or the media scrutiny or the career implications for the generals watching from thousands of miles away. He knew only the tunnel, the darkness, the scent of his target. And he pursued that target without hesitation. When the world learned what had happened, when the news broke that al-Baghdadi was dead, the pressure transformed into celebration. The president announced the successful raid in a televised address. Politicians from both parties offered congratulations. America's allies expressed relief that the terrorist leader was finally gone. And in the midst of that celebration, a photograph emerged. A Belgian Malinois. Name classified. Face unobscured. The dog who ran into the darkness when the entire world was watching. The moment Conan entered that tunnel, there was no going back. This wasn't like other military operations where retreat is an option. Where tactical withdrawal can be ordered if the situation becomes too dangerous. The tunnel was narrow. The darkness was absolute. And at the end of it waited a man with a bomb strapped to his chest. Conan's handler made the choice to release him. And Conan made the choice to run. Can dogs make choices? Scientists and philosophers debate this endlessly. They argue about animal consciousness, about instinct versus decision-making, about whether a creature without human language can truly choose anything. But anyone who watched the footage from that night would struggle to call it anything else. Conan wasn't pulled into the tunnel. He wasn't pushed. He ran with purpose. With determination. With what can only be described as intent. He chose to pursue. And that choice had permanent consequences. The explosion that killed al-Baghdadi could have killed Conan too. The electrical cables that fell around him caused injuries that required immediate medical attention. For several agonizing minutes, the Delta Force operators didn't know if their four-legged teammate had survived. But Conan emerged. Wounded. Shaken. But alive. His choice, if we can call it that, had paid off. The mission was accomplished. The target was eliminated. And Conan would live to serve another day. But the irreversibility of the moment extended beyond the physical. After that night, Conan was no longer just a military working dog. He was a symbol. A legend. His photograph would be shared millions of times. His name would be spoken in the White House, in Congress, in living rooms across America. He could never return to anonymity. Never go back to being just another dog in a special operations unit. The raid made him immortal in a way that few soldiers, human or animal, ever achieve. And with that immortality came expectations. Public appearances. Media attention. A level of scrutiny that no dog can possibly understand. When Conan stood in the rose garden of the White House, cameras flashing, reporters shouting questions, he simply stood there. Calm. Dignified. Unaware of how dramatically his life had changed. But his handlers knew. And they understood that the choice made in that tunnel, the decision to send Conan into the darkness, had created something that could never be undone. A hero was born that night. And heroes, once created, belong to the world. The consequences of the al-Baghdadi raid rippled outward in ways both expected and surprising. For ISIS, the death of their leader was a devastating psychological blow. Although the organization continued to exist, terrorist networks are notoriously resilient. The loss of al-Baghdadi disrupted their command structure and damaged their mythology. The man who had proclaimed himself caliph, who had stood in the pulpit of Mosul's great mosque and declared a new Islamic empire, had died like a cornered rat. Chased by a dog. Surrounded by enemies. Detonating his own bomb in a final act of cowardice. That narrative was powerful. For the military working dog program, Conan's fame brought unprecedented attention. Applications to become dog handlers increased. Funding for canine training programs grew. The public suddenly understood, in a visceral way, how valuable these four-legged soldiers could be. Conan became the face of an entire community of military dogs. Dogs serving in combat zones around the world. Dogs detecting explosives, tracking enemies, protecting American soldiers every single day without recognition or fame. For Conan himself, the consequences were more personal. After his recovery, he returned to active service. His injuries healed, but the intensity of his work continued. Belgian Malinois like Conan typically serve until the age of 8 or 9, when their physical abilities begin to decline. The details of Conan's subsequent missions remain classified. We don't know what operations he participated in after the al-Baghdadi raid. We don't know how many more times he ran into danger for his human teammates. What we do know is that he continued to serve. And eventually, like all military working dogs, Conan will retire. He'll live out his remaining years with his handler or with a family specially selected to care for him. He'll trade the chaos of combat for the peace of a backyard. The tension of operations for the simple pleasure of a tennis ball. That's the bargain that these dogs make, even if they don't understand it. They give their best years to service. They risk their lives for handlers who become their family. And then, if they're lucky, they get to rest. Conan earned that rest. Whatever comes next, whatever quiet years await him, he earned every single moment. The world moved on, as the world always does. New crises emerged. New headlines dominated. The raid on al-Baghdadi's compound faded from the front pages and became history. But something had permanently changed. The relationship between military working dogs and the American public was transformed by Conan's story. People who had never thought about canine soldiers suddenly understood their value. Their sacrifice. Their extraordinary courage. Schools invited dog handlers to speak to students. Documentaries were produced about the military working dog program. Legislation was introduced to ensure that retired military dogs received proper care and recognition. Conan had become more than a single dog. He had become a symbol of all the dogs who had served. All the dogs who had given their lives in combat. All the dogs who had saved human soldiers through their dedication and bravery. A new equilibrium emerged, one where military working dogs occupied a more prominent place in the American consciousness. And for the special operations community, the lesson was clear: sometimes the most effective weapon isn't a gun or a missile or a drone. Sometimes it's a dog. A partner who will follow you into any darkness. Who will face any enemy without hesitation. Who will put the mission above everything, including their own survival. The balance has shifted. And dogs like Conan are now recognized for what they've always been. Not just tools of war. But warriors in their own right. We're building a community of people who care about these incredible stories. Subscribe now and help us honor heroes like Conan. When we tell stories about war, we usually focus on humans. Generals making decisions. Soldiers showing courage. Politicians taking credit or blame. But Conan's story reminds us that heroism doesn't require language. It doesn't require understanding of abstract concepts like patriotism or duty. It doesn't require the ability to comprehend the stakes. Conan didn't know he was chasing the world's most wanted terrorist. He didn't know that billions of dollars had been spent trying to find this one man. He didn't know that his actions would be discussed in the White House, broadcast on television, analyzed by military strategists. He knew only the tunnel. The darkness. The chase. And he ran. Perhaps that's the purest form of heroism there is. Not the calculated bravery of humans who understand the risks and the rewards, but the simple, instinctive courage of a creature who trusts completely and acts without hesitation. Conan trusted his handler, trusted his training, trusted his pack. And when the moment came, he didn't think. He didn't calculate. He just ran. Into the darkness. Toward the danger. Without looking back. That's what makes his story worth telling. That's what makes him a hero. Not the medal he received at the White House. Not the fame that followed. But the moment itself. The choice to run. The courage to chase evil into its hiding place. If this story moved you, consider sharing it with someone who would appreciate it. Conan's legacy, and the legacy of all military working dogs, deserves to be remembered. And if you haven't already, join our community by subscribing. More incredible stories are waiting.